Hello my dear friends, you're on the Military Summary channel, and this short video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous night of the local time, and there were a significant number of very interesting details and updates. First of all, we're going to start for the Battle of the Black Sea or the Battle of Crimea, and the Russians, as I see, found a solution. Know that Ukrainians, when they attack Crimea, they always use the same pattern, and the first pattern, the first event that tells the Russians that Ukrainians are going to attack very soon is the fly of Global Hawk. If we see Global Hawk above the Black Sea, this is the first evidence, the first step of the next Ukrainian attack against the military infrastructure on the territory of Crimea. And today, to be more precise, on the 11 p.m. of the local time of 24th of September, the Russian sources reported that Global Hawk was flying above the Black Sea on the south of Ukraine. Obviously, this Black Hawk were trying to provide as much as possible information regarding the Crimea for the Ukrainian forces before the next Ukrainian attack. So this is the first step of the pattern, but there is still not 100% chances that Ukrainians will attack. Probably the chances are around 60 or 70% every time the Black Hawk, Global Hawk, flies above the Black Sea. The second step in the pattern, if the Ukrainians are planning to attack, is first the Ukrainians try to test and overload the Russian air defense. And this night, the Ukrainians made significant number or attempts to attack Crimea with drones and to test the Russian air defense system, to force the Russian air defense systems to be unloaded, to waste their missiles and so on. And if the Ukrainians use air drones to attack Crimea, that means that this is the second step in their global attack against Crimea with Storm Shadows. And now we understand that the chances that Ukrainians will attack Crimea with Storm Shadow, with Neptune missiles, with HIMARS systems, with different types of weapons they have, is around 100%. So obviously, two things: Global Hawk above the Black Sea, drone attack against Crimea to test and overload Russian air defense system, and the third step is to attack this territory with Storm Shadows and different types of missiles. So this is the pattern. Nothing new, no new technologies, no more ideas, just the regular pattern that Ukrainians use from attack to attack. And the Russians managed to discover this. And they found the key. The most important in these Ukrainian attacks, in those Ukrainian attacks, that every time they attack the territory of Crimea, they were forced to move as much as possible forces closer to the bank, to the shore. Like, they need to bring Marines that later they use for marine operation against Crimea or gas stations. They need to bring closer the missile launch systems to the combat line. They need to bring air defense systems and many other systems they need to bring as close as possible to the shore while doing all these things. And the Russians found a solution. First, they first step, Global Hawk. Then the Russians mentioned the drone strikes. This is the second step. And basically, the Russians didn't allow the Ukrainians to launch the third step. And we're talking about the Storm Shadow missiles. And the Russians launched their own missiles against the targets in Odessa. And during the previous night, there was a significant number of explosions in Odessa. The Ukrainians were trying to shut down the Russian missiles and the Russian drone Geraint, but it just was a waste of time. The Ukrainians didn't expect this counterattack. The Ukrainians probably even raised up Su-24 with Storm Shadows to the sky, but later the sources are saying that Ukrainians were forced to put them down and to redeploy them from one airport to from one airfield to another. Furthermore, the Russian sources reported that the Russians attacked and destroyed the hotel in Odessa with significant number of foreign forces, engineers, and different special forces who support this, who supported and wanted to support the current operation against Crimea. So the Ukrainians' tactics was discovered by the Russians, and the Russians probably found a solution. The only key thing that the Russians need to support if they want to prevent all Ukrainian attacks in the future is to always have some number of caliber missiles and drones for this case, because one more time, the Ukrainian pattern is so simple. First, Global Hawk, then drones, and only after that the Ukrainians use storm shadows. So at any point of this pattern, the Russians can counterattack and to ruin the Ukrainian plans. Now we're moving to Kherson direction. The Russians continue bombing and attacking the concentration of the Ukrainian forces along the bank of Dnipro River in the settlements like Lvova, Kazatske, Berislav, for example, Mykolaievka. Just during the previous 24 hours, the Russians bombed Mykolaievka about more than 8 times with FAB 500. So we see that something big is going to happen in this area, or I would say that the Ukrainians were planning to make something big. But when I see such a significant number of explosions and attacks with FAB bombs, I believe that the Ukrainians don't have even a single chance to complete anything successful from this direction, because currently everything is on the fire. The Ukrainians don't have possibility to concentrate their forces, and basically if they start any operation without proper preparation, they will be completely defeated. Now we are moving further to Orekhov direction, and today we got also a lot of very interesting details and videos. And first we would like to discuss that the Russians using Lancet managed, looting Orlan and Lancet, managed to discover the Ukrainian engineering machine, evacuation machine that Ukrainians were trying to hide somewhere among the tree lines, and as a result of Lancet strike, that engineering machine was destroyed. There are two important things that we need to note regarding this situation. First of all is the depth of Russian Orlan and Lancet strike. If we calculate the distance from Kopony, the distance is around 20 kilometers, and the second that Ukrainians do have lack of this type of weapon, and they are very useful. The Ukrainians in the past, in the previous days, were using this type of machines for evacuation purposes. So this is very important type of weapon, top engineering weapon that Ukrainians have and that Ukrainians lost. Another interesting video we got from Verbova. The Russian sources published the video how the Ukrainian armored vehicle entered the western part of Verbova, and at some point of that attack, that machine was destroyed. And furthermore, according to this video, as you can see, machine was moving out of the city. So basically, as I understand, the Ukrainians managed to land their infantry in the city. That's like Bradley was or something like this. They entered the city, they landed their infantry inside the city. The soldiers were unpacked from the armored vehicles, and after that Bradley was trying to evacuate but was destroyed some among the fields. So this video confirms that as a result of fierce clashes, the Ukrainians did manage to enter the city, and currently the final phase of storming of Verbova has started. The Ukrainians are inside the city and they will try to push further. There are still a lot of job to do because Verbova is a very long city, but anyway, the battle has started. Now we're moving further to Donetsk direction, and today we got a lot of very important videos from this area, and the most important one is coming from the city by the name of Rodinskaya. The Russian sources published the video how they managed to discover with Orlan the Ukrainian trains, the Ukrainian train with a lot of armored vehicles on board. We see a significant number of trucks, tanks, personal carriers, armored vehicles, Bradleys, and so on. The Russians managed to discover this train with this significant number of armored vehicles, and after that they made a strike with Tornado S system. There are also a lot of, and after that, as you can see, the Ukrainian soldiers started running away from these positions because they realized that this is not going to be the only strike, and the Russians probably will attack more, because currently this train is no longer able to move, and it's like a perfect target for the Russians to continue attacks. Later we got some satellite picture. So as you can see, on the left side we can see the area before the strike, and on the right side we see the area after the strike. And the thing is that there are two places of explosions, so there were more explosions. The first one took place in the interceptions of these railways, in this area, and we got this explosion according to the video. And the second explosion took place on the station. So significant number of armored vehicles, personnel, and manpower were destroyed as a result of usage of Tornado S system. If we calculate the distance between this territory, between this area and possible Russian positions to attack in Donetsk, the distance is around 60 kilometers. You know that the Ukrainians maybe do have possibilities to shut down Russian Geranium, to shut down Russian Kalibr with air defense systems, but since the beginning of the special military operation, I haven't heard or seen any evidence or results of how the Ukrainians shot down the Russian missiles like from Tornado S systems. And Tornado S system is something like HIMARS. But the Russians almost every single day report that they managed to shut down another HIMARS missile. So this is another surprise that the Russians managed to prepare for the Ukrainians. When talking about Outwitted, today we got more updates regarding the situation and in this area. The Ukrainians, as we discussed, managed to capture some 3 lines after the battle for Outwitted. And today currently the Russians try to force the Ukrainians to step back from this territory by attacking this area with drones, with FPV drones. And as a result of those strikes, probably the Ukrainians anyway will be forced to step back from this direction. Now we're moving to Bakhmut-Klishchiivka area and to Orekhovo-Vasilievka. First we're going to start with Klishchiivka. Today the Russian sources reported that Ukrainians, after a few days of regrouping in this area, when they were trying to concentrate more forces, they launched a series of attacks against the Russian positions. The first attack took place in the vicinity of the railway station and the 3 lines that located between, let's say, Bakhmut and the Klishchiivka. The Ukrainians made that attack trying to penetrate the Russians' defense belt, but that attack was repelled and the Ukrainians were forced to step back. Another attack took place in the vicinity of Kurdyumovka, Zelenopolye. According to the Russian sources, the Ukrainians managed to enter the pump station, this one, and from this area they were trying to attack the Russians in Kurdyumovka, but the attack was repelled and the Ukrainians were defeated. And the Russians also confirms second day in a row that as a result of clashes they managed to capture Orekhovo-Vasilievka, and to be more precise, that was the forces of 106th Division, the Marines of 106th Division. This 106th Division, this division is located exactly in this area, but yet we haven't received even a single photo or video confirmation of that. For now, we are not going to change the map because we need at least some videos for this or more confirmations from more reliable sources. When talking about Kupiansk and the Liman front lines, the most important update are coming from Novoselovsk. The Russians published the video how they were bombing and attacking the Ukrainian positions in Novoselovsk, the settlement, and in the area in the vicinity of the settlement. And basically, according to the geolocations we have, during the previous days of clashes in this area, the Russians lost some positions also on the northern part of Novoselovka, northwestern part. So we will update the map and we will color this territory probably into the gray zone. So at least this square will be marked as the gray zone because the Russians are no longer there, and there are possibility for the Ukrainians to send their reinforcements in this direction. And that's it for this short video. Military Summary channel reminds to condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes to my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.